we break, there's just one other person I'd like to call up quickly, and I've often said this before, that for a lot of the parents here today, we tend to find solace in knowing other families or knowing other parents that go through the same struggles as we do. And I had the amazing opportunity to meet another parent just a few days ago, and she agreed to come up and share her story. Martha, if you'd like to come join us. And oh, I just found out, and Emma's coming too.
So I think most healthcare providers who get to work with families are really, really lucky, and I am no different. So it is such a pleasure to work with families, and so this is one of the families that I love, and I'm so glad that they're here, so thank you so much.
I'm a little nervous, so just bear with me here. Is it on? Sorry, hold on a second.
Hello? Yep. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Doherty, for inviting me here and allowing me to share my story about Emma Claire. My name is Martha Reinheimer, and Emma is my 7-year-old daughter recovering from autism. I like to say recovering because from the time when Emma was first diagnosed to where we are today is like comparing two different girls. I felt today was very important, so we worked our summer vacation around for this conference. I wanted to share my journey with you today because I believe it is important to have testimonials that offer not only proof points to the benefits of Dr. Doherty's protocols, but also to provide you with the hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I will discuss 3 major medical events in Emma's life that truly defined where our family was going and what we are going to experience the first 2 years. After 2 years of so-called colic, constant diarrhea, and Emma not wanting to be held, I started to have concerns, especially with the many nieces and nephews I have. I took notice that these were not typical traits that any of them had, and I started to get concerned and frankly scared. Around 2.5, Emma was not progressing well. She had very little words, terrible bowel movements, unexplainable rashes, still not allowing anyone near her, not wanting to be touched. Her fixations with Dora the Explorer burned out the disc. She hurt herself, picked at her body until she bled. She had terrible night terrors and bit everything in sight. Frankly, her obsessions ruled our house. If things weren't just as Emma needed them, chaos would erupt, and restoring order would require anything from hours to days. I knew in my heart something was wrong. I called it mother's intuition. And to complicate the situation, we were traveling for my husband's career and had a younger son with one on the way. We all know the situation. Job transfers from city to city, a family death, other family sicknesses, and yes, we really did hope it would work itself out. But we all know autism. It does not take a back seat to any of life's trials and tribulations. Emma was getting worse, the first event. So I took her into the pediatrician's office and explained my concerns. After tests, the doctor proceeded to tell me Emma had every symptom of autism on the autism checklist. I have been hit with a truck, and the doctor finishes off the appointment with his prescription. Tough break. Try some ABA therapy and get ready to isolate her from the mainstream of life. As I drove home pregnant with number 3, all I could do was think, what if this happens to our family again? The toughest thing to do after all the crying is to pick yourself up, process the diagnosis, and do what Ron and I do best. Research, research, research. And that's what we did. And isn't it ironic that I remembered Jenny McCarthy's son had autism? Her story led me through our research to find a Dan doctor in Texas. The good news was she would see Emma in January. The bad news was we had to wait. We wanted to get started right away, and we asked her the first thing we could do to help Emma. She said diet, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, along with therapies such as ABA, OT, speech therapy. Information overload. And I needed some answers to why these things are recommended and do any of them work. The conclusion I had drawn at that time was there's no guarantees that any of it will work, but what do I have to lose? Ron and I decided to be a team and fight for our daughter's health. Those are the thoughts that lit the fire in me to fight this disorder for my daughter and be the warrior she needed me to be. I had no idea what I was about to experience. The second event. Our first day doctor in Texas was wonderful. She was a breath of fresh air from the previous experience in the pediatrician's office. After our first visit, Ron and I realized we had a lot of work ahead of us. Her initial test results were overwhelming: leaky gut, gastrointestinal dysbiosis, and many mineral deficiencies. A key thing I do remember was when the doc told us Emma had a lot of heavy metals in her body, specifically arsenic and mercury. I was blown away thinking, how could this have entered my child, and how do we get it out? We attacked the metals by detoxing, chelation, and attacking her gut with these killing protocols. At this point, the information overload was numbing. As a result, I began to keep a journal as a reference point, noting her behaviors from the day, her biomedical regimen, and her diet. This was also a huge help for the doctor. The initial detox phase of the biomedical was extremely difficult. You will experience intensified behaviors. There were new obsessions. The rigidity was so overwhelming, and her symptoms definitely worsened. There were many days I cried and asked myself, why am I doing this? She is not getting better. I have 2 sons to care for, and they are not getting the attention they deserve. I was starting to waver. But then, one day, we were driving home from the park. She pointed out the window and said, "Birdie, Mommy." Boom. It was just the boost I needed. A watershed moment for me. Slowly, her vocabulary started to build. She gained more words, her stimming was lessening, and not nearly as intense. Even though this was very rough, I thought, okay, I can do this if I just get her to talk instead of scream. Around this time, my father came down to visit. The first morning, he saw me pulling out the usual mound of supplements, pulling them apart to mix them up in applesauce to give to Emma. He was shocked to see Emma having to take all those pills. He raised his concerns, and I tried to reassure him that this was okay and she needed to take them, it was helping her. But he was very uneasy. I gave him the Kenneth Bach Healing the New Childhood Epidemics. Dad devoured the book in a couple of days, and by the end of the visit, he was asking if Emma had her supplements for the day. Educating your family and friends is key to having the support and understanding of the process required to recover children from autism. Now Emma is 3, and I had to fight to get her into the special school that had all the therapy she needed and was finally accepted to Treehouse. With the diet, biomedical regimen, and therapies, Emma was starting to function much more independently. So much so that I was even considering potty training. After the birdie sighting, I was looking for another affirmation that I was on the right track. I waited for 3.5 years for it, something we all take for granted, something I never take for granted again. Emma came out of school, hugged me, looked at me and said, "Mommy, I love you." This warm, sweet, gentle show of emotion was enough to keep me going through what I refer to those autism days. Those days when you feel you're really on the edge, you've hit another plateau, and yet you have to give. The third event, Emma's 5 now. Life goes on, and Ron has another relocation for his work. Alert, change is bad for Emma, and that means it's not good for the rest of us as well. Back to the grind I went to find another Dan doctor for Emma. I found Dr. Doherty, and with the first meeting, I knew she'd be the right fit for us. It was an upgrade, like going from regular to premium at the gas pump. Her naturalistic approach from autism was exactly what Emma needed at this point in her recovery. Ron and I were looking forward to a new approach. First, Dr. Doherty did a series of tests to see where Emma was. And after those results came back, we changed her yeast-killing protocol. She was taken off nystatin and is still using her natural yeast-killing supplements. As Dr. Doherty started to focus on brain inflammation, Dr. Doherty started to focus on her brain inflammation. Who knew our child's brain was inflamed? And it was. Once we started this part of her protocol, we saw huge gains. So much so that after 6 months, Ron and I were starting to worry and preparing that she was going to have another huge regression. But she didn't. She kept moving forward. Working with Dr. Doherty is so refreshing. She's focused on helping the children and the families that she goes above and beyond constantly, answering all questions that you may have, no matter how silly you may think they are. She also suggested the idea of vision therapy. Again, something so foreign. I had to do my research and thought, sure, I'll go and see what this doctor has to say. Dr. Fink, her eye therapist Jennifer, and her team were amazing and very accommodating. After Emma had completed all the testing, she was diagnosed with ocular muscular dystrophy. Stunned? Yes, and a bit angry, because I thought all those times doctors had checked her eyes. Didn't they notice this? After the shock of my poor daughter having issues seeing, we added vision therapy to our routine, her new glasses. Jennifer, Emma's vision therapist, made a huge impact on how Emma saw the world we all see. This allowed her to enjoy life the way we all do. So, where are we now with my little Emma? Well, diet, supplements, and therapies are still part of our everyday life. We are still struggling with flexibility, controlling situations, and being fixated on certain things. But I look at this as our next hurdle to conquer along our journey of recovery. Right now, we are celebrating her success, completing a full year in the classroom, making friends, and being happy. Believe it or not, in my life, that is all I could ask for. And I know my prayers have been answered. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emma. My favorite color is purple, and I like to do ballet. Dr. Dory is my doctor, and I love going to see her because it's so much fun at her office. Thank you, Dr. Dory, for making me feel better.
Every year I swear I'm not going to cry, and then it starts, and I start crying.